The Connected Communities programme is a massive national experiment in how you can build knowledge between universities and communities.
A lot of the innovation comes from the notion of working with communities rather than doing research on communities.
Usually what has happened in academia especially is that researchers have gone into the community, took the knowledge but never actually brought the community along with them.
It's not enough to theorize. If you want to be involved in a community experience, you must actually seek their creative and intellectual responses to what you're doing.
My kind of early job, if you like, was to make sure that all the AHRC disciplines, from music to literature to philosophy, were being included and weren't feeling that they were neglected.
The creative arts side became a really important part of the programme. People really engaged with it and could see how it was great in terms of creating data in its own right.
The advantage of having interdisciplinary collaborations is that it just allows you to pluralise what it is you do. You can meaningfully say, we can participate in practice, we can make exhibitions, we can produce performances.
What was new about it was saying, let's put some long-term strategic focus on how do we do this work better.
Overall, it was acknowledging that there is a section of our society that aren't leading on change that needs to take place in the UK.
As long as we have research councils where academics have to be the lead, then there's always going to be issues of power and control around finances, around how the project's organised, about what's happened in it, and about the key research questions.
The key challenges that we would have identified, I think one of them was timescales. You know, a good project is 3 to 5 years because it takes a lot of groundwork to get people interested and engaged.
I might have gone in with a sense of thinking, oh, I'm doing something broadly good here, you know, it's community oriented and so on. And yet, it turns out that wasn't what the community wanted at all.
There's that wonderful saying, nothing about us without us. We have the expertise, but that should not be, in the sense, just exploited. It should be shared.
Some of the things I was really committed to doing was really making sure that we make visible what we've learned about how to do this sort of work. The biggest thing really was try to think about the programme as a whole and say, what have we learned about university community collaboration that we didn't know before?
We, I hope, have tried to create a new template of what's possible in terms of collaborative research.
People are starting to look at research which is about mutual benefit and mutual learning in a way that wasn't there before.
Ideas around co-production, ideas around sharing knowledge, using values-based approaches are much more prevalent.
I know some academics who've been involved in this project who've been completely rejuvenated in their work.
I wouldn't dream these days of ever doing a research project without thoroughly involving right from the beginning people for whom it was absolutely fundamental that this work happened.
I think many of us would say that it was a really important moment of validation for the style of work that we're committed to.
The research I've done has built my confidence, the confidence to write about my experience, my community's experience, so they have a voice in academia as well.
Recognition is huge for Black and Asian people, really, because we're part of the society that tends to be invisible, under-consulted, under-invested in. So the mere step of placing some resources in front of them, saying, how can we help, is a huge thing.
I think there's a really interesting potential connection that can be explored between collaborative research and decolonising knowledge as well, because it is about trying to upset the traditional hierarchies.
I think it's created a set of resources that will inspire and support and scaffold excellent work going forward.
The programme has kind of filtered off in a number of different ways, probably very below the surface, but it is, I think, making a small contribution to changing the common sense about what it means to do research.
The key things to take away for the legacy from the project would be to keep those relationships that already exist going, but always try and build new ones and always try and think about what are you missing.
I think those seeds have been sown actually with a lot of academic institutions who see the value of those practice-based partners who recognise they need to work with people in a different way.
I think there's some very interesting Continued thinking needed around the role of universities and research organisations and in their relationship with communities.
And just a general policy of everything we do has to benefit not just us, but our locality and the communities around us.
But I do think that we'll have to think also of how can we attract groups within those communities that would not be attracted by the language or the framework of the projects.
It's quite a humbling experience for an academic to be part of that process, and a very useful one.
What I hope will happen is that there'll be a new way of starting to think about how research can be conducted, how it can be mobilised in a respectful way, but also that this is actually what an example of excellent academic research is.
The challenge now is for universities and funding bodies to take what we found seriously and really scale up these activities across the country.